This is fourth video about chapter breathing and exchange of the natural gases and then exchange of the gases. This is the fourth video and we are going to cover about 5-6 topics and let's start. Okay, this is about our first topic. Just a minute. This is our first topic, site of exchange of the gases. Actually, in previous topics, I have told you what is the site of the exchange of the gases. See, this is alveoli. These are your lungs, suppose. Okay. This is the trachea. Trachea is coming from here. Then there is the bronchi. Then there are some bronchioles. Okay. And at the end of it, there are some alveoli. This is the alveoli and this is the blood capillary. Okay. And this is the site of the exchange. Say here is written alveoli, primary site of the exchange. Exchange of the gases means exchange of O2 and CO2. Okay, and then the second site is between blood and tissues. This blood gets oxygenated and it goes to the tissue, and also there is a capillary nearby tissue, and there is also a site of exchange. Okay, so there are two sites. One is alveoli and one is between blood and the tissue. Okay, this is about this topic. Moving on to next topic, factors involved in diffusion of gases. Very easy to understand. You can just imagine while reading, right? First of all, I will tell you what is simple diffusion. See, this is the definition of the simple diffusion. No need to remember, just understand it. Is the process by which solutes are moved along a concentration gradient. This is important. These move along concentration gradient. Concentration gradient is what? Gradient means difference. Okay. If there is difference in the concentration, then there is movement of the solute. Here, energy is not involved, just movement along the concentration gradient. Okay. Then you can easily understand factors affecting simple diffusion of the gases. See, concentration gradient is important. How much is the concentration difference? Then there is solubility of the gas also. Some gases are more soluble and some are less, and which affects its diffusion. Okay, and then thickness of the membrane. If membrane is thicker, then diffusion is less. If it is not thicker, then diffusion is more. This is about this topic. Then moving on to next topic. What is partial pressure? See, in this chapter you will be reading PO2, PCO2 multiple times. PO2, PCO2, this is nothing but a partial pressure. So what is partial pressure? See, suppose this is the gas, these are the different gases, and pressure contributed by the individual gas in a mixture of gases is called partial pressure. Okay, if gas is always mixture of different gases. Okay, so in this mixture, pressure contributed by O2 is called PO2, that is partial pressure of O2, and pressure contributed by CO2 is PCO2. Okay, partial pressure of CO2. Moving on the next topic, this is there are some numbers, you have to remember the numbers. And one more thing I just want to tell you. See, sometimes you have to remember the figures, sometimes you have to remember the terms, sometimes you have to remember definitions and all. Okay, if you have any idea, if you know any acronym or any trick, so that these things will be easier to remember, you can comment it in my video, so that I will pin it. I will pin that comment so that other students can know some different ideas, some novel acronym to remember the things. Okay, moving on to our topic, partial pressure. See, I told you what is partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide. This is in mmHg, which is the unit of the partial pressure, at different parts involved in the diffusion in comparison to those in atmosphere. You see, first of all, we will see in the atmospheric air. See, CO2 is less in atmospheric air and O2 is more. So partial pressure of O2, PO2 is 159 and 0.3. This thing you have to remember. There is no other option. 159. I can tell you that CO2 is less in the atmospheric air compared to O2. So partial pressure of the O2 is more, 159 and 0.3. Then this air comes to what? Alveoli. Okay. You can see in this figure, this is alveolar layer. Okay, alveolar air. Okay, and what is PO2? 104 and PCO2 is 40. See, CO2 is lesser in the alveolar layer as in the surrounding air, 104 and 40. Okay, this is the these are the values of PO2 and PCO2 in the alveoli. Then we will see this. Okay, blood get oxygenated in the alveoli. See here also PCO2 is less and PO2 is more. Okay, there are some difference in the numbers, but you just remember PCO2 is less and PO2 is more. You can see in this this picture. See, this is the oxygenated here. Okay, this is going into heart and then it is going to different tissue. Here PO2 is 95 and PCO2 is 40. 95 and 40. Then blood get deoxygenated. Here it is the deoxygenated blood which is going through heart to alveoli again. Okay, here 40 and 45. Okay, blood PCO2 is more here, 45, and PO2 is less, 40. You can see here PCO2 45 and PO2 is 40. And in tissue also, the PO2 and PCO2 is same as that of deoxygenated blood. You can just remember in tissue bloods get deoxygenated, CO2 is added into blood and O2 is taken and their partial pressure is same. Okay, in deoxygenated blood and in the tissue. This is the this is the picture which is showing different PO2 and PCO2. Okay, these are the number. You have to remember this. There is no other option. Okay, then what is concentration gradient? Concentration gradient is the concentration difference. Okay, for oxygen and for CO2 we are going to see. For oxygen, from alveoli to blood and from blood to tissue. Simple. This is the concentration gradient of the CO2. Here the concentration of O2 is highest. Okay, and then there is oxygenated blood which is going to tissue, and you see from alveoli to oxygenated blood there is concentration gradient, and from blood to tissue there is another concentration gradient of the O2, and similarly for CO2 from tissue to blood there is concentration gradient from tissue to blood and from blood to alveoli. Okay, you can remember by oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, very simple. Okay, and there our next topic is what? Diffusion membrane. See, this is the alveoli and this is the blood capillary. Okay, so the membrane between them is called diffusion membrane. As we have seen, alveoli is the primary site of the diffusion of the gases. So diffusion membrane is made of 3 layers. The thin squamous epithelium of alveoli. This is the alveoli and this is thin squamous epithelium, this one. Okay, what is squamous epithelium, that will be covered in other chapter. We are not going into detail. Just remember thin squamous epithelium of the alveoli, and then endothelium of the alveolar capillary. Okay, capillaries are lined by endothelium. This is the endothelium of the alveolar capillary, and then basement substance in between. You see basement substance. There are 3 layers: squamous epithelium, thin squamous epithelium of the alveoli, then basement substance in between them, and then there is endothelium of alveolar capillaries. Okay, then we are going to see solubility of CO2 and O2. I have just included this as a separate topic. Solubility of CO2 is 20 to 25 times higher than the O2. Just remember, CO2 is more soluble than the O2 than the oxygen. Therefore, the amount of CO2 diffusion is much higher than the O2 diffusion. Always remember, CO2 is more soluble than the O2 and the amount of diffusion is more higher for CO2. Then there are 2 things: transportation of oxygen and transportation of CO2. See, we have seen hemoglobin is present in the blood, which helps in the transportation of the oxygen. So about 97% of the oxygen is transported by RBCs. Hemoglobin is present in the RBCs, and remaining 3% is transported in a dissolved state through plasma. So what is plasma? See, blood consists of the different cells. Okay, and then there is a fluid part. So the plasma is the colorless fluid part of the blood. Okay, we are going to see what is plasma in detail. Then for now, just remember that 97% of the oxygen is transported by the RBC, and 3% is transported in the form of in a dissolved state in the plasma. Similarly, CO2 only 20 to 25 by the RBC, carbaminohemoglobin. This is the This is the this is the compound which is formed by the CO2 and the hemoglobin, carbaminohemoglobin, that we are going to see later on. And 70% of the CO2 is transported as bicarbonate. Okay, CO2 trapped as bicarbonate at the tissue level and transported to the alveoli and released out as a CO2. See, this is the suppose this is the tissue which is CO2 is trapped as the bicarbonate, then which goes to the alveoli and released as the CO2. Always remember 70% of the CO2 is transported in the form of bicarbonate and 7% dissolved state in the plasma. Let's see once again, oxygen how is transported, 97% in the RBC. Similarly, CO2 only 25% of the CO2 is transported by RBC in the form of carbaminohemoglobin. Okay, and 3% of the oxygen is transported in dissolved state through plasma. Here 70% in the form of bicarbonate. Bicarbonate is CO2 is trapped as the bicarbonate at the tissue level and which is transported to the alveoli and released as a CO2. Then 7% of the CO2 is transported in the dissolved state of the plasma. Okay, and this is the last topic. We are going to cover transportation of the oxygen by hemoglobin. As I told you, hemoglobin is the red colored iron containing pigment present in the RBC. Okay, O2 can bind with the hemoglobin and form oxyhemoglobin. Okay, this is the important. See, carbon dioxide and the hemoglobin forms carbaminohemoglobin, and this is the oxyhemoglobin. Okay, and it is reversible reaction. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry maximum 4 molecules of the O2. This is important to remember. Each hemoglobin can carry 4 molecules of O2. Okay, and there are two things. Every 100 ml of the oxygenated blood can deliver around 5 ml of the O2. And every 100 ml of the deoxygenated blood deliver up to 4 ml of CO2. You just remember 5 and 4. 5 ml of O2 and 4 ml of CO2 every 100 ml. 100 ml of the oxygenated blood and 100 ml of the deoxygenated blood. 5 and 4. Okay, thank you. This is about the fourth video of the chapter, and last video, only one video is remaining. That will be our last video. Thank you.